Good evening, everyone. What we decided was, as we wrap up, was that we needed for Black people to focus on systems oppressing them long enough to stop marching on themselves. We also looked at stop thinking that we have arrived. For white people to stop thinking they have arrived because they have one Black friend or they know one Black person. We need more uncomfortable spaces and more uncomfortable places to really feel what we're actually talking about. Less self-censoring. We also need for our darker skinned people to stop thinking that because of a light skinned person, or because a person is light skinned, that they are better than who they are. We also need for the youth to stop ignoring the problem, and we need more people of color to represent. Now, people of color also represent, other than African Americans, more people who don't identify with just our global majority as Black. Last two things is that we need for Black men to really start talking to each other and with each other versus at each other. Thank you. My name is Margaret Rice, R-I-C-E,
Okay, thank you so much. And now if we can have a representative from the green team.
So we spend a lot of time with strength. Hi, I'm Amy Hunter with the YWCA. We spent a lot of time with strengths, and there were so many good strengths that we came up with of being strong and resilient and adaptable. And then we spent time calling out the lies. So there are at least 13 lies, from lazy, criminal, shiftless, welfare, oversexed, to how the lies are spread, which was really interesting. A lot of the institutions were named, like schools, politics, home, house of worship, friends, advertising, media, and then how it affects lives of people of color. Depression, feeling used, angry, giving up, sick, stressed, territorial, and then telling the truth, that we are diverse, adaptable, brilliant, living with a lot of pain, and our generation's expecting to do better each generation. So really wonderful group. I think what was helpful and useful, we asked a question at the end about what it just felt like to be in that space, and one of my favorite comments was that we didn't have to do a lot of explaining about what we were going to say, and so that was brilliant. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And now we will have someone from the orange team. If you guys kind of just twist your bodies so they are able to read off of their own notations. And could you also state your name before speaking?
Sure. I'm Margaret Davis, and I have no idea if I'm holding this microphone where I should be. Okay, thank you. I work for WashU, and I have a private practice, but I'm here because I'm a concerned citizen. And I turned to our facilitator just a moment ago and said, did we have different questions? Because I have very different answers. So what we talked about at first was how unpacking the backpack made us feel. And most of the feelings were uncomfortable feelings, embarrassment, discomfort, help me out here, guys. Shame, guilt, right. And then we talked about what do we need to do personally in order to continue the reflection and conversation? And what our group kind of all said was that we need more opportunities for us as minority white culture to be involved with people of color and to have fun together and to have opportunities to do things other than sit in a room and talk about words, although that's something we need to do as well. We need structures to support the connections across social diversity, gathering in homes and talking. More awareness of meetings. Two of us who were in the group said, oh, I heard about this meeting just because I happened to be somewhere else and someone talked about it. So, you know, I'm not sure how aware the community was that the meeting was here tonight. We should have been, but we weren't. Just more opportunities for open dialogue, more opportunities to practice. Anybody else in the group have anything you want to add? Okay.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, can we have someone from the, was this the blue team? And please state your name.
I'm Kenneth Pruitt, and this is Mary Ferguson.
Mary, I'll help you hold it.
And I'm not sure why we took it off the thing, but now it's going to be a whole demonstration. So we get to incorporate other people. So these are our notes on also that last question. What do we need personally to continue to have this conversation and reflect on these things? So first of all, we said, I think over and over again, it needs to be ongoing, consistent, regular. It can't be a one-shot thing. It needs to be something that is ingrained in what we do as a region. We need to be reminded over and over again of concrete examples of white privilege, which is what that list of unpacking the knapsack was all about, and that they are specific and personal. We need to be having more cross-racial conversations, ones that make us uncomfortable, ones that make us squirm a little bit. Those are very important. We also need to have, we talked a bit about awareness and education on usage of language. Language is always changing, language is always evolving. So being able to be on top of that and be culturally aware of how we speak about ourselves and about others is incredibly important. And that it is approachable by people of different ages, that we're aware of how different age groups consume information and connect with media. We need a way to recognize multicultural competency, and that was, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, closely tied to our next comment, which was accountability for local politicians and other leaders to be multiculturally competent, so that if someone is running for office, that we don't just know where they stand on particular economic or social issues, but we are grading them on their multicultural competency, and we know where they stand, and we can therefore hold them accountable to that. Again, we mentioned the ability to hear from all age groups in terms of how they feel about these issues. We need to make sure that these conversations go deeper and that we have time to contextualize and talk about definitions of systems of privilege. Can't read the end there. Accessibility for those who don't self-select to come to Ferguson Commission meetings. So all of us are here because we want to be here. So how do we take this conversation to folks who have not self-selected to be here in ways that does not push them away further, but engages and pulls them in and magnetizes them to this conversation?
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, that wraps up our small group discussion. Thank you. I hope you all enjoyed, and this kind of ignited some type of thought and hopeful conversation that you will have in the future. I will now pass it along to Bethany.
Thank you again to Jerica, and thank you to particularly Dr. Banks and to Rudy for setting great context for tonight, and to all of those facilitators and leadership that have really helped us to be thoughtful about this process. I'm going to ask all of the commissioners, please, if you would take your seats back into the front as the commission begins its planning and administration portion of the agenda. It's a bad idea for you to leave now, because the content of what the commission has been working on since the prior meeting is really important for us to report out publicly for accountability purposes. Thank you. So the first thing on the commission planning agenda is the managing director report that I'd like to report out. Thank you. On 3 different topics, or 4 different topics for this evening. The first one is to denote again on the record that racial equity and reconciliation is not a 1 or 2 or 3 night thing, that the commissioners will continue work in racial and ethnic reconciliation, extending beyond tonight. Commissioners have been and will continue to be provided with opportunities for deeper engagement and self-reflection in this area, particularly as related to how we think about policy change within our areas of priority. Second thing, just to give you a quick update on where we're now headed, health and well-being is part of the specific charge. The way that it's said within the executive order is around naming disparities. And so the next part of content in addition to the work of the working groups as we elevate issues and calls to action, will be to look at health and well-being, specifically in 3 different areas. Number 1, there'll be an overview of health policy in Missouri that impacts health access as well as health disparities for our most vulnerable populations. Second, we want to examine regional data. We've got 10+ years of data coming from the St. Louis Regional Health Commission on health and health disparities. In addition to that, we have a national best practice here in St. Louis that was formed in a time of crisis, although healthcare, that we can learn some lessons as we think about models in the future. And the third area has come up throughout our work, but we're going to operationalize this term of trauma, advancing the healing process through addressing community trauma. So identifying definitions is important. What is trauma? What is mental health and wellness? And leveraging other communities that have experienced like trauma on a community level, and how we can begin to build infrastructure to create trauma-informed communities. So you'll look forward to that particular content that's upcoming on our agenda meetings in the future. Second area of report is to think about translation. So for the audience, and just to reaffirm this with the commissioners, the commission is committed to ensuring that our work exists beyond the report submission September 15th. And the strategy to design implementation, including the funding strategy and accountability around our recommendations, is what we're defining as our translation strategy. Those are the words. So the types of questions that we're beginning to ask now in terms of translation are, what are the steps needed to create the right authorizing environment for these recommendations to live? What should be the guiding principles of the Commission's translation strategy? What are the challenges to effective translation? And what cities and communities have done it well, or lessons to learn? How should we track progress and evaluate our efforts over time? What are the characteristics or criteria for an anchor organization? Or where none exists, what do we need to create? Metrics for mechanism. All of these are questions that we are asking now so that this report becomes a catalyst to additional movement beyond our existence. So I wanted to put that on record as well. And I look forward to engaging with commissioners and thought leaders from a spectrum of community members on this topic starting this month. Last piece, I just wanted to highlight some key activities of the commission, although we'll get an update from 2 of the working groups tonight. The Ferguson Commission to date has held 20 public meetings. Over 2,000 attendees have come, 9, including tonight's open comment sessions, and we have together facilitated and listened to 19 small group breakout discussions. The Commission has collected and made public over 23, not including tonight's informational and research documents that are on our website, and transcription and video. P.S. Thank you so much for coming tonight to do very hard work. We appreciate you coming to make sure that this is publicly accessible and usable for our audiences. At any point, the public can go to stlpositivechange.org to access this. And lastly, I'd like to personally applaud the yeoman's work of each of the commissioners, each of you in your seats, whether you are a co-chair, whether you have become an advocate, participating in public discourse nationally and locally. Some have created learning opportunities. In whatever way that you are showing up in this work, you are showing up strong. And so for that, we are beginning to see working group content and participation be elevated. So if you haven't been to the working group meetings, we engage you and invite you to join us. And now at this time, as we transition from the managing director report, we're going to hear some specific information from the Citizen Law Enforcement Relations Working Group, as well as the Child Wellbeing and Equity, Education Equity Working Group. Thank you.
So the Citizens Law Enforcement Group met April 6th. And then our previous commission meeting, the commission agreed on several priority areas. And at the April 6th meeting, we focused basically on training. It's been a discussion we've had for quite a while sometime. But we wanted to really get to the work of narrowing down what our recommendations will be in that area. So we've had a significant amount of input from the public, from various meetings. We have experts who are engaged in what that training should look like, in the working group meetings. And we've actually reached out to police departments and police academies, Lisa, I have, to get a sense of whether or not they could deliver these items. And although we're not going to focus on whether or not they can specifically deliver it now, but that they do have the capacity to deliver it at some point in time. And so we've had those discussions. So our next meeting will be April 20th, working group meeting. In that meeting, we're really going to think about, first of all, writing out why it's important that we have training in this area, what that training should look like, who should be involved in the development and delivery of that training, and how much training should be delivered on a yearly, annual basis. And we hope to come back here at the next commission meeting and have some concrete recommendations on this training piece. And then we hope to move forward with the other priority areas and start to develop concrete recommendations that we can present to the full commission. Any questions? Great. Okay. That's quick.
Good evening, Commissioners, and on behalf of Dr. Tobias and myself, very happy to report out that our working group, just so that you know, is made up, in addition to the two of us, there are 9 other members of our working group. I wish they were all here so we could say a big thank you to our working group. They have each taken either as one person or as two to lead a different section of our work. We have been blessed to have so much participation from the community and certainly want more. I think that we are experiencing somewhere between 40 plus at each one of our meetings, highly engaged. We're also have been reaching out to experts in all of these different fields and have a pretty good lineup, but certainly can use more. So as you listen to this list, who else can be there? And then we're also been given some additional support through Dr. Carol Basile, who is the Dean of the School of Education. We have about 7 doctoral students that have been assigned to us and to help us research things as we need them so that we're in a better place to bring information to all of you. So right now, the topics that are currently being considered have been in work groups. Recommendations are being made on all 4 platforms: public policy, systems, practices, and individual contributions, college access and affordability, food stability, coordination of social services with schools, human capital in education, including looking at the quality and the readiness and mastery of teachers, administrators, superintendents, and school boards. The current transfer law, you know that we already brought in recommendations there. And then the last 2 that are currently in motion are the system of district and school accreditation, and also funding for public education. And then at the last meeting, which most recently happened on April the 8th, the community that was there voted on 5 more topics for the next round: early childhood education, parent education and engagement, high school graduation, childhood mental health, which director that'll give us some coaching of how we interface with that. And then the last one was caring adults, mentoring, and coaches. So all of those top ones are in play, and we'll pick up these starting on April the 21st. So a full plate. Hopefully we'll give you some information back soon. Thanks. Oh, sorry, questions?
Thank you, Becky, and thank you, Dan and Brittany. On behalf of Starsky and myself, I want to thank all of the working group chairs and other commissioners who are participating actively in the meetings, and then lots of folks who come both from the community and from subject matter perspectives. As you can tell from these two very brief reports, and you've been on the website or had sent to you, as has the public, a great deal of detail behind the hard work of the working groups. And we really are into, I think, the meat of many of these topics at a very substantial and deep level. And we're learning, we're listening. Priorities, as Becky just said, continue to come to the top as we hear from folks who come to participate and raise their voices. And so we're very thankful and pleased with the hard work of the working groups. They're now beginning to meet very regularly. We have a municipal court working group tomorrow afternoon. We have economic inequity and opportunity on Wednesday afternoon, and those are the ones just this week, and then the ones that were mentioned for next week. So we appreciate the extra work. I would say we didn't have a report from the municipal courts group tonight because they haven't met since the last meeting, but there is legislation moving in the General Assembly. On the House side, there was a press conference that the Speaker and a number of representatives, including representatives of the Black Caucus, had, and they announced their reforms that they intended to add to Senate Bill 5. We've had reviews done of those reforms by the co-chairs and by our subject matter experts, and they respond very positively and comprehensively, based on what we have seen so far, to the calls for action that the working group established based on the input from the community. And so, as the commissioners know, Starsky and I issued a statement indicating that it was a step in the right direction, a strong step, I believe we said, and we await the hearing and the work of the House this week and next on that bill. So positive movement on the municipal court reform side of the equation. We are close to our midway point in our commission's work, and I want to commend Bethany and our staff team for the aggressiveness with which they have approached both the working groups, the broader work of racial equity and reconciliation that we have now spent two very thorough and thoughtful meetings on, and that we are here not yet halfway through, and we are now seriously and comprehensively working at the staff level on implementation and translation. That is, very simply, what happens after we file our report, because we have from the beginning, all of us committed together that what happens after we complete our recommendations, and we have not waited to make our recommendations, and in fact have moved very aggressively to put many on the table and to call for action already. But what happens after our report is finally filed, and what is in place, and what implementation structures and accountability for a period of years is in place, is critical in our view to the work of this commission. So thank you, Bethany, for leading that work, and we look forward to learning more about that. The final thing I would say would just be to reinforce two slides that were in the presentation. We won't take time to put them back on the screen, but pull out particularly the working group co-chairs, or those participating in working groups, page 11. The two slides that are titled Working Groups, and it lists tests that we are asking you to put each call for action and each recommendation through, to reinforce the comment that Starsky made earlier, that racial equity and reconciliation tests are cross-cutting across all of our work. And so we want each working group to ask, who does this recommendation benefit? Does this recommendation differentially impact racial and ethnic groups? Is cultural competence a core part of the institutions involved? If not, what are the training or partnerships that are needed? And in what ways are we addressing the intersection of the wealth gap and race? And so we would ask you to keep these in mind as each of our working groups puts their recommendations in, because these are the tests and the filters that we will collectively need to do. So we have used this meeting to do a number of very thoughtful things, and we have a lot of activity moving. So we appreciate the pace at which the commission is moving, the pace at which the working groups are moving, and most of all, we appreciate the energy and pace at which our staff brings the commitment and passion to this work. So thank you all very much, and I'll turn the podium over to my co-chair, Starsky.
Thanks, Rich. I'll be quite brief here, as we have reached an hour where we may actually complete before the time that we have scheduled. And I've got a brand new 70-year-old at home who won't be upset with that, because we will share a cupcake before he goes to bed. That being said, I want to do a couple of things. Number one, I want to thank commissioners on today for engaging in a different manner in our meeting. We usually invite commissioners to step back and to pay attention in the small groups. Today, we invited you to fully participate in the small groups, and I want to thank all of the commissioners who fully participated in the small groups, who engaged with the kind of accessibility and vulnerability that we were inviting the community to engage with as well. I'll also reinforce, particularly for those who did not take that opportunity on tonight, I'll reinforce a call that we made via email to all commissioners and things that we're making available to all commissioners, and so that the public knows that we are seeking to be serious about this modeling that we have noted in the presentation on today that we were called to do, that all commissioners have been asked, and we encourage, of course, all to engage in the kinds of immersion experiences around racial equity, racial inclusion, reflection on these issues of privilege and discomfort that we've talked about in the last two meetings. And so we invite all of you to take advantage of the opportunities we'll continue to share over the course of our email with each and every one of you. And we know that there are good opportunities in the community. We invite the community to share with us. Send to contact@stlpositivechange.org, contact@stlpositivechange.org. Opportunities for our commissioners to engage in diversity work and inclusion work so that we may model and we may experience so that we have deeper understanding these issues that we have explored over the course of the last two meetings. The last thing that I'll note is a thanks to the community, not just for engaging here, but we noted on March 2nd when we gave our 100-day report that we will be reaching out and seeking to invite the entire region into this narrative. And since that time, we have been extended invitations to present to community groups, regional groups, faith-based groups about the work of the commission. And that is really important, that those folks have the opportunity to hear what's going on in these spaces and have a chance to hear the outcomes of the commission's work. We also want to say thank you to commissioners because we know that this has put additional strain on your schedules and time, that people have called upon you to do this. You didn't know this was going to be a part of the scope of work necessarily. You have received that graciously and generously given of yourselves to bring more people into the work. And so while we thank the organizations that have invited us in, we also thank you for giving your time to share with this community the very critical and far-reaching work that we are called to do. I will, because that was just two things and every preacher needs to close 3 times, I'll close with this. A really clear invitation to everyone tonight to go to stlpositivechange.org. Go there. Look specifically for the 100-day report, and there have been different iterations of it that have those calls to action in it. Share it, whether that means downloading it and printing it out for people, whether it means forwarding it to people in your workplace, whether it means sending it out, forwarding it over social media. We really want people to know these calls to action that have been made based upon the hard work that more than 1,200 citizens have engaged in and have given voice to over the course of these 9 meetings. Share this information with those in the community. It will help us to build the kind of responsibility, the public will that will be necessary to assure that we get the kind of change that we see moving right now on municipal courts and the kinds of things that we see moving around child well-being and educational equity in our communities. There is much work for us to do. We thank you for the time you have spent with us doing it, and we invite you to share even more so that we can reach and impact the lives of all of the 2.8 million people in our metropolitan St. Louis region. With that being said, if there be nothing else, one of the things we seek to do, and we invite you to stand with us, we recognize that sometimes we can deal with heavy, hefty, and or heady information. And so before we go forth and take these conversations to those in our communities and in our homes, we just like to take some time of silent centering as we transition. And so we invite you just to center your energies and your strengths, find a place of peace as we seek to transition. Thank you very much. Good night.